Hi Disha, we are happy to have you here on our series, Success Stories with SSA. And we would we would really want you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi everyone. I am Disha and I am a student of CSC with a specialization in AI and robotics at VIT Chennai. Still a student because we are graduating next month. Haven't graduated yet. And currently I'm working at BlackRock. So I finished my 6 month internship last month and now I'm working as an analyst with them.
Uh, Thank you, Disha. We have a few questions for you and we would like you to answer them. So, our first question is, why did you choose your particular course or field of study?
Okay. So when I was in 12th, pretty much when I was in like 9th or 10th standard, I was like very much interested in robotics. So there is this robot, Sophia, if you've heard about it. And I was like really intrigued about it. And I always wanted to learn about robotics. And then I got to know that artificial intelligence is the thing behind it. And I was not actually sure what those words mean. But I just wanted whatever I do after 12th grade, I wanted to become an engineer and I wanted these two things to be part of whatever I'm doing. And when I saw there's a field and there's like a specialization with robotics and artificial intelligence together, I was like very excited to take it.
Thanks, Disha, for that wonderful story. Our next question is, what were some of the most impactful courses or projects that you did during your internship studies or your engineering studies?
Okay. So I think even if you're not a very project person, even if you're just focusing on the kind of projects VIT makes you do, if you're focusing on all the assignments they make you do, if you're actually working on them, not just doing what your professor is asking you to do. But I think what is better is you just try to explore what you want to. You can just somehow find your interests, what things actually interest you, what things make you excited, and you can just eventually get into those projects. So there's no proper project, like one project. If you do that, you'll get into any company you want, but you just find things that you find interesting, and then when you're telling people about those things, they should know that you are passionate about those things, and they will know that this is the person who will be passionate about the things that they do.
Okay. So now we are moving ahead with the experience part of the experiences that you gained during your college life. So we would really like to know like the experiences with the internship or the projects, and if you can elaborate more on the tech stack, like the projects that you went from your second year to fourth year.
Sure. So, since I was an artificial intelligence student, I was mostly working with machine learning stuff or computer vision related stuff. Some of my projects were involving LLMs or GPT 3.5, but I was not like a very project making person. Like, there were a lot of people who were like always making projects one after the other. I was not that kind of person, but I was just trying like different things at different times instead of like focusing on one thing. So, like right now, the work I'm doing, I think when you are selected for a company, it's not very necessary that the things you like or the things you have always worked on, it's not necessary that you actually get to work on those things. It's more about like what kind of person you become in that process, and when you actually get to do those things. Honestly, it's all about problem solving. If you have developed those skills, that's what they are going to look for. So they can just give you completely different stacks. Like here where I'm working, there are a lot of people who have never worked with Java in their life. Like in our college, they teach Java, they teach different courses for Java. But here I saw a lot of people from different colleges coming and they have zero experience with Java. And now they are completely working with Java. So it's not exactly about the tech stack that you worked on, honestly, for me, but it's about the skills that you build and how passionate you are about learning new things.
How did these experiences shape your career goals? Like how it helped you to like help you in any way in the interviews or any kind of thing. So that she wants to know, basically.
Okay. So, So I think like whenever you are telling the interviewer about projects you've, one thing that they like asking is like they give you hypothetical issues or try to understand what kind of issues you faced while making that project. It's not just the project you made and you tell them that okay, this went perfectly. This is like a very common question that they ask, what kind of issues you faced while making it. So what they are trying to understand is how you actually came over those issues, how you actually fought those issues, and you didn't give up basically. So I think how whatever tech stack I worked on or whatever projects I worked on, how they actually shaped my career was just telling me that I shouldn't just give up. It sounds like a cliche, but like if you really think about it, all the errors that you face, eventually they are going to go away. And it's like better if you're seeing an error because you can at least think where you're going wrong. It's better than not having an error and something not working at all, right? So I think the mistakes that you like really hate when you're at that moment, those are the mistakes that actually shape your career.
Correct. So let's move on to your placement preparation. Exactly when did you start your placement journey?
Okay, so if you're talking about the preparation, I think like I was not doing very serious preparation like since my second year or something. I think I pretty much started actually preparing like 1 year before like companies actually come to campus. I think if you have like sort of bookish knowledge of like DSA, or like if you were paying sort of attention in classes, and if you knew what was happening in DSA or whatever programming languages you prefer, I think that would be good enough even if you are if you know amount of stuff and you're only spending 1 year, it's okay.
Hmm. True that, Disha. So what were the resources like books, online courses, or mentors which were most helpful to you?
Okay. So I think in the beginning, when I was like sort of struggling with solving problems on my own, and I didn't have a lot of knowledge of DSA at that time, one like there's this YouTube channel called I think Anuj Bhaiya, and I think that channel was like very useful for me. And the issue with me was I couldn't watch like very long videos of one topic. So his thing is like he has like 20-30 minutes videos of topics and he covers a lot of different things. And it pretty much covers everything that's there in DSA. And I think there, if you are understanding everything thoroughly in that YouTube course, like I've talked to a lot of people about this particular YouTube playlist, and I don't think a lot of people agree with it because everyone is different, right? Different things suit
Hmm.
different people. But this particular video playlist, it really suited me, and I liked his style, and I understood pretty much what he was saying. So I think that particular channel really helped me.
Okay, Disha, I have a question. Like as you mentioned, Anuj Bhaiya, so you were following that channel. So I just want to know what were the topics that like you were scared with or you had a fear, like specific topics in the essay, if you can, and how did you like get a grasp of it? Because like, there are some advanced topics like dynamic programming or graphs and some trees like tries and all that. So what were the topics that gave you a nightmare?
Right. I think dynamic programming is like for everyone. Everyone
You
is scared of dynamic programming. So I was scared about it too. But I think the way he covers it is like whenever he's trying to explain something, right? He's trying to give an example of like a really simple real world problem. So it's easier for you to relate with it, and it's easier for you to understand why this thing even might be important, right? Because you can't like this makes sense that you're learning something and you're like, yeah, I want to do this for placements. But it's very hard for you to sometimes actually relate to that problem, what that problem is actually going to solve in the real world. So I think that was sort of helpful for me. That's how like the scary part became like, okay, even if this is scary, this is like also very useful.
Okay, so let's move on to your interview process. So how many companies did you interview for, and how did you tackle the rejections?
Okay. So before BlackRock, I interviewed for one company, and that was Ion. And Saji is here, and Saji had her interview like I think 3-4 days after I did. And for me, as you guys were my roommates at that time, you guys know that my
First,
interview went really well. that was my first interview and it went really, really well for me. And I was like, this person asked me these questions and I answered them so well. I'm so getting in. And I was really excited about it. And I thought it went perfectly fine according to me. And I still have no idea where I went wrong. But I'm honestly happy that it didn't work for me because I liked BlackRock way better than I liked Ion at that time. And I'm really thankful that it happened. But I was so sure that I was going to get it because I didn't mess up any single question. And it's not that I was not confident or I messed up any questions. I answered the questions pretty well. But I think sometimes it just doesn't match what they are wanting, or maybe they have like higher expectations, or maybe sometimes it's luck. You just don't know what it can be anything. Like sometimes when you have like too many rejections, you can think that you are the one responsible for it and something is wrong with you. But I think that's not really necessary. That's like pretty much not the case almost every time. It's just random, honestly. So I think how I tackled it was, I was like, oh no, what am I supposed to do? And I was like, okay, fine, that's okay. And for me, luckily, I didn't have to go through a lot of interviews as such. I went for like a lot of tests, but like BlackRock was my second company for which I interviewed, and it worked out. So I didn't have to go through like a lot of interview rejection, only email rejections for me.
That's a
Just to
nice
add on
thing.
before we go ahead on the next question, like I feel that in this part, I think God has some better plans for us. So
Yeah.
I think that's why you landed up in BlackRock and you are enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yes, Sanji, you can go ahead with next
This,
question.
yeah, Destiny had plans. So moving on to the next one. Disha, can you walk us through your interview experience in BlackRock?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing was, after the shortlist was out, the first thing we had was an online test. And that test had mostly MCQs. So there were a lot of mental reasoning questions. There were a lot of DSA based questions. There were a few sort of finance related questions, but it didn't actually require any finance knowledge. It was more of like, if you're buying this and if the rates are going up, what will you do? Stuff like that. So it didn't actually require any finance knowledge, but it was more of like a psychology thing. And after that, after the people who cleared that online test, we had a few interview rounds. So on 5th of September, I had my interview round. So the first thing was basically a tech round. So in that tech round, they were just firstly asking me what are my programming language preferences and asking me questions related to that. And they were just, it was not like one specific language, but like they'll just first go to one language and ask me questions about that, then go to the next language. So now that I'm here, I understand that they have a lot of different roles. They don't pick people for like one specific role. So if someone was more interested and more inclined towards Java, they'll give them a Java role. Or if someone is more inclined towards Python or web development, they get more those kind of roles. So after that, the questions were not very deep, but they asked me a few questions about my projects that I've worked on and the things that I've worked on, mostly questions related to that. And there were a few sort of DSA related questions that they were just asking me verbally instead of actually making me code those questions. And they were just asking me, if this is a problem, how will you solve that problem? How will you program that? There were a few questions related to map and sets. Basically, if you were doing this, how will you? So they were giving me a problem and they were asking me how I will solve it. And after my solution, they'll keep asking me further, asking me how I'm going to optimize that, questions like that. That was the first tech interview. It took 1.5 or 2 hours. After that, I had like an interview with multiple like sort of people. So they made me like, they asked me to share my screen and they asked me like, the thing is, most people don't have Java knowledge at it's only VIT which has like proper Java experience. Most companies don't have Java experience. Most college people don't have Java experience at all. So they just made me code like a very simple thing, like something related to prime numbers on. So they made me share my screen and they asked me question and they were like, can you code this? And I was like, yeah, I can code this. And then they asked me to optimize it and they asked me how you can optimize prime number question, like a question related to prime numbers. So I was just talking about that and explaining all the ways you can optimize it. So after that, they asked me a few more questions related to my resume. And they asked me like what kind of tech stacks I'm interested in, mostly questions related to that. And I think one topic that like that's their favorite topic is like Java. favorite is AL tree. Reason we had like 40-50% of questions that we had in our tech in like the online round was AL based. So after the second tech round, I think 2 hours after that we had an HR round, and that HR was like very simple, but that was pretty much, they asked me what are the social causes that interest me, and I'm like a very social causes person, and I'm like, I like volunteer, so I had a lot of things to talk about in that round. But that was like a very small round. That was like around 6 or 7 minutes round. And in that round they're like asking you which location you prefer, and why do you want to join the company you are joining. So BlackRock is an asset management company, and one thing they work on is basically helping people achieve financial well-being. So I talked about that and they really liked it. So whenever you are sitting for any company, make sure you're reading things about that company. And it's a good thing if you're trying to understand their principles and values and how they align with your personal values. I think that's one thing that really resonates with them.
Thank you, Disha, for sharing your whole interview experience. And I think it will be very helpful for other juniors and the audience that are looking. So I have a question like during placement season, we all have gone through that phase that we see our friends getting placed and we are not yet placed. And a kind of like anxiety is there in our minds that when will our time come, when we'll be placed and when we'll be free from this all things. So do you like how did you handle like was there a case where your friends got placed first and you were still struggling hard to get placed? And if there was that case, how did you handle it?
Okay, I think that certainly was the case. And no matter how smart you are, that's like a case with everyone. Somehow their friends get placed way before them. But I think for me, the case was like my friends were like way smarter than I was. Sakshi, Sanji, a lot of my friends were like super smart. So even if they were getting placed, I was not personally feeling like, oh no, they are getting placed. Why am I not getting placed? I was like, okay, it's their time. They are like way smarter than I am. So it's completely cool if they are getting placed first because it only makes sense. And I was like, okay, it's fine. It's like there are levels, right? First they get placed, and honestly, if I tell you about it, if your friends are getting placed or if a lot of people are getting placed, you should honestly be happy about it because they are not going to sit for the next companies that are going to come. So it's not really a bad thing if you think about it.
That's a
I
good
think that's a
perspective,
good
I feel.
perspective that you
Yeah,
have given.
a very positive perspective. Okay, Disha. So moving on to the next question. How have extracurricular activities such as clubs and societies played a role in your personal and professional development, and how did they influence your placement journey?
Right. So I think for me, I was part of like a lot of clubs and like very different clubs.
Yeah.
So I was the general secretary for Triple Women in Engineering, and I was the vice president for the Capsule, which was supposed to be the MAC VIT Chennai at that time. And I was involved with Place XP, I was involved with Girl Up, I was involved with We Teach for some time, and I was like volunteering for a lot of other things. So I think how that shapes you in general, how college shapes you is it gives you a variety of experiences. There's no other place where you can get so many different kind of experiences, and it's like so many different people coming from different backgrounds, different states, and they are coming with their perspectives, their point of views, and they are telling you about their journeys, and you just get to explore yourself in that way. And that kind of exposure makes you so confident that whenever you are going for any interviews, whether it's college related interviews or whether it's interviews related to the company you are interested in, the kind of confidence that gives you, it's really impactful. When people are talking to you, the number of experiences you've had, they can literally tell how many experiences you've had based on the way you're talking to them. So I think all of my college experiences were like really helpful for me.
Uh, Thank you, Disha. For that, we would now like to talk about your current role. So, can you describe your current role and responsibilities?
Okay. So right now, in BlackRock, I'm a software engineer. So what happens is, BlackRock has this product called Aladdin, which is their asset management tool. So BlackRock uses Aladdin to manage their assets, and a lot of BlackRock's competitors also use Aladdin. So they are BlackRock's clients for that specific product. So I am part of their platform engineering team. So basically, there are a lot of onboarding that takes place for a particular app like Aladdin. It's a huge software, right? So there are different app servers that need to be onboarded. So the project that I've been working on is pretty much related to that. So the team I am a part of, they work for developer productivity tools. Like there is GitHub Copilot, which our team basically they onboarded GitHub Copilot into BlackRock. So my team is basically working on different development tools that can empower the developers that are already part of BlackRock. So the tech stacks that I have to work on is like, as I said, the things that you've been working on is not necessary. That's the work we do. But in the beginning, I 2 months in Java, which was completely Java, nothing else. And then I got to work with Python. And like the work I'm doing right now is like there's a lot of automation stuff. So there's a lot of Python, and there is this language called Rego, which is like there are manual rules. If you want to automate those rules, you use Rego. So I've been using like different things, and I don't think anyone thinks of you like if you're using Python, they don't actually think of you as a Python developer specifically, at least here at BlackRock. They're just thinking you of as a software engineer, and they're like, okay, we'll give them something else tomorrow and they'll have to work on that.
Okay, so moving on to next question. So we really like to know, like, as you have started your corporate journey now and you're no more longer in college. So we would really like to know how is like your day, like how does your day look like in a corporate world, and how is it different from college?
Or did you ask how is my day at corporate?
Yeah, and how is it different compared to college?
Okay. Honestly, talking about the pressure, especially the pressure during internship, it's like not as much as VIT pressure, at least for me, because VIT is like you have in one semester you have like 5 theory subjects going on, you have 5 lab subjects going on, you have like some J components going on, and every day you're like, how am I going to survive this week? But for me, at least my internship project, personally for me, it was not as hectic as college used to be, so I was very relieved. Honestly, it's like you have 2 projects in college. It's like the same 2 projects you have, but you have like 6 months to finish it. So you are relieved and you can do it on at your own pace. So I think the pressure was not as much as VIT's pressure, but I don't think that tells about my corporate journey, but more about like the pressure VIT students usually have. But my shift is sort of like not very convenient because my team has a lot of people who are working in San Francisco. So because of that, I have like 12 to 9 shift, which is bad because I don't have time in the evening for me. But I think at BlackRock, it's pretty flexible. So if you want to have a different shift, you can have a different shift, but then you'll have meetings. So it's different for different people.
That was great knowing, Disha. Let's talk about your future aspirations. So, where do you see yourself in next 5 to 10 years?
Okay. So that depends on a lot of things. Honestly, like 5 years ago, I didn't think I would be here, right? So it's like a very different question because you don't really know what you'll want in 5 years, right? So like right now, what I'm seeing is BlackRock gives you a lot of different kind of opportunities, and it gives you a lot of different tech stacks that you can work on. They have this thing called BlackRock Academies where you can learn different things that you want, and there are a lot of paid courses that they pay for, and you can just opt for them, and you can just build your skill set. So what I am working on right now is building my tech stack and like finding what are the tools that I find interesting, what are the languages that I find interesting, what are the things that I want to work on. And I think it's like small steps. You can't just take a 5 year jump, right? So I think BlackRock does give you a lot of opportunities. So how I see right now is just building my tech stack, building my skills, and just exploring myself.
So, Disha, what are your long-term goals? As in, you mentioned that there are small goals which usually, we just assemble them and make bigger goals. But like, what do you have in mind for your future?
Oh, can you repeat, Sanji? It got frozen.
Acha. I was saying to you, what do you have in your plan, yeah, in your mind for your future? Like, what do you want to be in future? What are your long-term goals?
Okay. So for now, I like being a software engineer, and I had an inclination towards artificial intelligence, but now as I see it, it's just part of problem solving. It's how you are solving that problem. So I think what I want to do right now is figure out what are the kind of problems that I want to solve, what are the problems I want to invest in, what are the things I'm passionate about. And meanwhile, when I have time and I get to solve problems that are not technically my personal problems, but problems of the company, of the issues that my company is facing. So meanwhile, I can just build the skill set for that. So I think that's what I'm thinking about right now.
Okay, now I think we are moving on to our last question. So the question is, we would really like you to give some suggestions to our audience or juniors who in any college of the country who are like who will be sitting in placements in next year, or they have just joined an engineering college. So starting from first year till fourth year, what should be the like how should they plan their 4 years of engineering as a whole so that they come out as a like they should have done everything. They should be an all-rounder. They should have enjoyed, they should have gained some good skills in terms of communication, personality, as well as in terms of technology. So what kind of advice would you like to give to
Including
your
the
juniors?
co-curricular aspect as well.
Yeah, it should like cover everything. Like you can go ahead and start with like your first year should look like this, your second year should look like this.
Right.
So you can go
Uh,
ahead with like
okay. I think the question covered up pretty much everything you're supposed to do in college. But I would say how you can do it is, as I said, just exploring yourself in the way and trying to figure out what are the things that you personally like. Like, you can't just go with this person has worked on this and this is what they have achieved. So you can just do exactly what they have done. And that's like, the mantra to success. That's not how it works. So I think what I would suggest is try to experience as many things as you possibly can. Like, there is literally nothing you need to be afraid of. Like, for me, what used to happen earlier, when in the very beginning, when I was trying to code and I used to face errors, no matter how simple or like easy looking they were, my reaction was like, oh no, there's an error. Like, that was my reaction. Like, I should just give up at that moment. And I think I used to take them very personally, honestly. Like, this is the end of the world and now I should just give up and coding is not for me. And I think that's the case for a lot of different people who are like, scared of coding in the beginning. So I think how it works is you just give yourself some time and you have just some kind of patience with yourself and trust yourself that eventually you will somehow learn it. You just have to believe in it that you will somehow eventually gain the skills to do whatever you need to do. And I think in the first year you can explore different things instead of focusing on one specific thing. You can just not be too committed towards one thing, but you can try a lot of different things. There are different things that you've heard about and you never knew what those things were, or you've heard about some company, or you've heard about some problem statement, or you've heard about some problem statement, or you've heard about some hackathon. You can just work on those things without being too serious about them, and you can just give yourself the freedom to fail at them. Just tell yourself that it's completely fine if I fail, even if I'm at the last place, doesn't matter. And just tell yourself consciously, so when it happens, in case it happens, you don't feel bad about it. And when you're in the second year, you would have figured out that these were the specific things that you were sort of interested in, or you were sort of good in. So you can just make a balance of the things that you think you are also good at and you're also like sort of interested in. It doesn't have to be something you are like super excited about, super interested in, and you're terrible at it. It doesn't always have to be like that. So you have to just find that balance, and you can maybe work on that balance in your second year. And both first and second year, do as many co-curricular things as you possibly can. Get as much of exposure as you can. Because when you're in the first and second year, what happens is even the clubs that you're participating in, all the chapters, they have like very bare minimum requirement. As you become seniors, their expectations increase. So if there's some club you are very interested in getting into and you think you might not get in, or you're like, I don't know if this is the right thing for me, the earlier you join it, the better it is. The earlier you get into something, the more you get to know about it, and that just increases your chances of actually achieving something or getting a higher position in that club, or actually gaining something from that particular experience. In your third year, I think most people just focus on their placements, and I think that's what you can do. By third year, you would have understood, and you would have understood what are the things you're good at, what kind of projects you have made, and what kind of projects you want to work on. And you would have already, achieved all of those. Like, one thing is, you make a lot of friends, as many friends as you possibly can, and with all the friends that you have, you try to have this understanding that what are the things that they are preparing for. Have good connections that help you, not just feel bad when you are getting placed, or they're just there to just poke you or just make fun of you. Have friends that are actually helpful, and you can just have a growth together. So I think third year is pretty much for that. Fourth year is like pretty much non-existent for most of us. We don't have a lot of subjects in our fourth year. In our 7th semester and 8th semester is pretty much for internship. So I think it's like pretty much 3 years for us, and that's what you can do.
Thanks, Desha, for sharing your incredible journey with our listeners. We are fortunate to have you in our success stories with SSA. Thanks a lot.